Hello, DeLago families. This is Mrs. Riley, the assistant principal, and today we're going to be talking about improving grades, or more specifically, the grading policy and no marks, as well as what you, the adults, can do to help your scholar. Before we jump into it, I wanted to highlight some data we're very proud of. On this side of the slide, you can see our graduation rates and our A to G rates. Our graduation rates are very high. In fact, the past 3 years, 100% of scholars have graduated. And then our A to G rates are the percentage of scholars who are graduating with all the requirements to go straight to a four-year college, which again, very high in the 80% range. Our course pass rates on this side of the slide, the individual courses range from 82 to 100%, but the majority are 90% or better. And then the percentage of students who pass every course each term ranges from 83 to 92%. In a nutshell, what this is saying is that the vast majority of our scholars are being successful in their classes and learning. And our grading practices, which we're about to go into, are a large reason that we are having this success here at DeLago. So now we're going to talk or do what I like to call a story of two scholars. It's the easiest way visually to represent how the no-mark system works. All right, here we are. This is my tale of two scholars. So these are two scholars. They're both super happy to be here at school. We're going to, for the sake of this, assume that they're freshmen, so they're brand new to DeLago, and then this represents a school year. So we have the end of first semester, the end of second semester, and the end of summer school. Term 2, term 1. Okay, so we use competencies at DeLago, which we're going to talk more about later, and those are the things that your scholar needs to pass in order to pass the entire course. So this scholar is going to be my, we like to call it the scholar who's doing things right. So they're making good choices generally. So not like a super overachiever. This is just the average scholar who's making good choices, generally doing what they're supposed to be doing every day. So these are the competencies. Generally, there's like 4 to 8 in each class. And there are presentations, there are projects, there are longer writing assignments, there are lab reports. They're like the bigger assignments that your scholar is doing where they're showing their learning. So a scholar who's doing things right is doing classwork. If they have any homework, they're making sure that they complete it at home. They're paying attention, they're engaged, and generally doing the stuff they're supposed to be doing when they're in class. So let's say the first one they get a B, and then they get a C, and then they get a no mark, because even when we're making good choices, sometimes maybe we missed a piece or we didn't quite understand it on our first try. Then they get an A, and then they went to tutorial, they cleared that no mark, and they got a B. Let's say they also went to tutorial and raised that one to a B. Then they got a no mark, and then they got an A. So now the semester ends. They do still have one no mark, so their grade in the course is going to be a no mark. Now, sometimes you might get your child's report card in the mail, and you're going to think, oh no, they have a no mark, they're failing. But I will tell you right now, no mark does not mean failing. Sometimes it does, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But in this particular situation, this scholar actually has like a B average, almost an A average. So they're not failing the class, but there's one like skill, learning standard, something that they haven't mastered yet. We want them to master it. So we're going to have them keep working on it, which is why they've earned a no mark. So if your scholar comes home with a no mark, you're going to ask to see their grades in Canvas, which we'll talk about later, to figure out, is it that they just have one or two things, or is it that they have a lot of things? Because they can be two very different situations. All right, so moving on. Second semester, again, they're going to have competencies to do, and it's going to be the same thing. Let's say they get a B, and then a no mark, and then they went to tutorial, and they cleared this thing that they had left, and so now the teacher is going to give them a final grade. Okay, so then let's say they got a C, and then an A, and then a no mark, but they cleared this one in tutorial, and then they can also raise grades, so they raised that one to a B, and then they get a B at the end, but they still have one no mark. So again, they're going to finish with a no mark. Now, and I do this presentation with the scholars, I always tell them, like, the vast majority of them are not going to end with a no mark because they don't want to come for summer school. So the average kid actually probably would end with a grade here, but for the sake of showing you how things work, we're going to pretend this scholar ends with a no mark. But it's only one. And so they're going to come for summer school. Our summer school is different. They don't have to sign up for it. They don't like register for a course and need to come for an entire 4-week period. It's like tutorial or Saturday school every day. And they come work on whatever they need to work on. And as soon as they finished it, they stop coming. So this particular kid for this course would probably only need to come one day to finish this thing. So they would do that. They would get maybe a B, and then let's say they got a B for the class. So they came for one day of summer school for that course. Now you have to imagine in your head they have 4 courses. So maybe they needed to come one day for one course, 2 days for another course, so they come 3 days total. And then the other 2 courses, they had grades, they don't come at all. Okay, this is my friend who's going to wing it. So they come and they learn about no marks, and what they hear is I don't have to try. And if I don't try, that's okay because I'll try later. I'll just do it later. And so what happens in that scenario is that they usually don't do the classwork. They definitely don't do the homework. They're like generally not engaged, maybe on their iPad or texting on their phone, not doing the stuff they need to do in class. So when the competency comes around and they just wing it, they're not prepared. So what happens is they get no mark, C, no mark, no mark, C, no mark. All right, end of the semester, their grade is also a no mark. But this no mark is very different than this no mark, which is why as an adult in a scholar's life, you're going to want to look at their grades in Canvas. Is my kid in this boat if they have a no mark, or is my kid in this boat? This boat is much more concerning because what's happened is they've now dug themselves a hole. Because we're going to move forward and we're going to do more new competencies. And if they don't change their behavior, because behavior is hard to change, and oftentimes they don't change it right away, we're stuck in that same pattern. So no mark, no mark. So now, let's actually say that's a no mark. So now, and let's say I gave them a last chance contract, which again, I'll talk about later. So they did clear one because I made them, but otherwise they didn't really work on these. So now it's the end of the year. We still have a no mark for first semester. We now have a no mark for second semester. We have 1, 2, 3 from first semester. 1, 2, 3, 4 for second semester. So this kid only had 1 to work on in summer. This kid has 7. And let's say that this is math. And this particular math class is only offering 1 week or 4 days of summer school. So they're going to come. They have to finish these by the end of summer school or this class will turn into an F. So they're really stressed out. They're rushing. And when we rush, we usually underachieve. So they're going to get C's, but they're going to just make it by the end of summer school. Possibly they don't and they get an F. But in this situation, we'll say that they just skate by. So they come for 4 days just for that class. But likely they're in this boat for all their classes, so they're probably coming the whole summer, all 4 weeks, all 4 to 5 weeks. But they still have all of these, and they didn't do them in summer school. So now what happens is 10th grade is going to start. So this is 10th grade, and they're going to work on them here. But they're also doing 10th grade no marks. So now they're working on 9th grade no marks and 10th grade no marks. They've got 10th grade teachers, but they're also having to go back and meet with their 9th grade teachers from the previous year, but they don't see them every day. So they have to go to tutorial. So suddenly they're working really, really, really hard because they're behind. And they can get stuck in this behind pattern where they're really stressed out. So we're upfront with the kids about this. We tell them all about this. I just did presentations in October with all the 9th graders. This kid is way less stressed out than this kid. This kid is working kind of hard every day. Not even really hard. They're just generally doing what they're supposed to do. The classwork, paying attention, and a little bit of homework here and there. This kid, maybe in the beginning was, not stressed out, but from here on, super stressed out. Because they've got me on their case, they've got teachers on their case, they've got the adults at home on their case about all these no marks that they need to clear. And so what we don't want for kids is to start off behind because it's really hard to get caught up. So we're going to talk more about how to avoid that. as this presentation continues. So let's spend a little bit of time talking about the philosophies behind our grading policy. It is grounded in research. So when the year before it opened, there was a committee of teachers, scholars, community members, parents who did a lot of research, and they looked at best practices in education. So everything in our school is research-based. But specifically for the grading policy, one of the things they looked at that comes up over and over in educational research is time. And it's this idea that all scholars can learn. If there's a particular skill you want them to learn, everyone can learn it, but everyone needs a different amount of time. And in a traditional system, everyone gets the same amount of time. Same number of school days, same number of school hours in a school day. And at DeLago, what we're trying to do with our no marks and our grading policy is be flexible with time. So there's more additional time after school and tutorial on the weekends with Saturday schools, but also when the semester ends, they're getting those 2 additional terms to keep working until they master a standard. And it is central to our pillar, never too late to learn. Another thing that's really important to us at DeLago is the integrity of the grade. We want the grade to be a reflection of what your scholar knows or can do, not a reflection of their behavior, not a reflection of how many times they tried or how long it took them to learn it, but it should just say what your scholar knows and can do at the end of the grading period. So for example, if a scholar has to try 3 times, and on the first try they get a C, the second a B, but then at the end they get an A, that means that they have spent the time and the energy to continue learning and growing until they were at that A level, and so their grade should be an A. Also in our grading policy, it says that scholars have to complete each course with a C or better. We do not give Ds at DeLago because a D, A is not considered a passing grade for A to G requirements, but also a D would not be considered reaching mastery or competency. And we want scholars to not move forward with partial knowledge. We want them to move forward with skills. And so if they haven't met that C or better, then we give them the no mark. And so what is a no mark? A no mark means a couple different things. So it could be that your scholar hasn't attempted it yet. It's a missing. So they either were sick on the day that it was done or they just haven't turned it in yet. It can also mean incomplete. So maybe a scholar attempted it, but there were missing parts, like they wrote the lab report, but they forgot the conclusion. They didn't hand in all the parts of a project. So it could also mean incomplete, or it could mean a not yet, which is below a C or a 2.5 on a 4.0 scale. So this would be that your scholar attempted it, all the pieces were there, but they hadn't quite met that standard yet. If they do get a no mark, we're going to require that they keep trying. This is part of that growth mindset and that idea that they all can get there. And so what we have done with our grading policy and no marks is made learning a requirement. Learning is not optional in our system. And we will require, in fact, we will bug them until they do clear those no marks and get those skills that we want them to have when they head off to college or to the workforce. To retake a competency, they do usually have to do some sort of retake procedure. So if you didn't meet competency on your first try, that means there's some more learning that needs to happen. So they can't necessarily walk in the very next day and just attempt again. We want them to go to tutorial, to work at home, to do some practice before they retake that competency. For the overall course grade, they do have to get a C or above on each grade. That's something I showed you in the 2 scholar example. If they have even 1 no mark at the end of the term, they will have a no mark in the course. And we are often asked why. Like, why does my scholar, or the scholars are like, why are you making me pass everything? Why can't you just average the grade? And there's several different reasons why, but the 2 big ones are first that we are preparing them for entry into a 4-year university because we want all scholars to have that as an option. Not all scholars need to go to a 4-year college, but we do want that door to be open to everyone. And our curriculum is designed to prepare them. But also, and I think our teachers would argue even more importantly, is that all those skills and competencies are essential for the workforce. And we spend a lot of time with our industry partners talking about what is it you're looking for in future employees. And it's things like being able to collaborate, being able to present your ideas, being able to communicate clearly and concisely, both in writing and in speaking. And a lot of our competencies are built around those skills. You'll see a lot of group work, presentations, a lot of writing, and it really is preparing them to be successful in future careers. And if we were to allow scholars to just take an average and not pass all of them, a kid could hypothetically make it through high school never having successfully given a presentation or never having successfully done a timed writing piece. And those skills are important. So if a scholar gets a no mark at the end of the semester, they are going to be put on what is called a student success plan. And this is like a contract between the scholar and one of the assistant principals, either myself or Mr. Domingo. And we are going to sit down with them and talk about what they're doing to clear those no marks. And once they've done that work, they're going to get that grade. But if 2 terms pass, including summer, so as I showed in that example, and they haven't cleared all the no marks, even just 1 no mark is going to result in an F in the course. This is what that contract looks like. It's something that we create ahead of time. So we're going to mail merge on the scholar's information. It's going to have already listed the courses that they still have a no mark in. So if they only have 1 course, only 1 course will be listed on the sheet. And then when we meet, we're going to fill out these different columns. So the first time we meet, they might put a 4 here because they have 4 no marks in humanities. And maybe they just have 1 in ENS. And then the next time we meet, what I'm looking for is that the numbers have dropped. So now it's a 0 and maybe it's a 2. And then the next time we meet, it's 0 and 0. So we're looking for that positive progress. There's at least 3 review dates. So there's the first meeting and then 3 more review dates. So they'll meet at minimum with one of the assistant principals 4 times. And that's where we talk about that. What's the effort that you're putting in? Effort would look like regularly attending tutorial, turning in work, doing those retakes, conferencing or checking in with your teacher. And again, the numbers are getting smaller. Now, if the numbers are not getting smaller, let's say we meet and they had 4 no marks, and then the next time we meet, it's still 4 and it's still 4, but they can show me that they're doing these things. We're usually then it's a conversation about what other supports do you need? Like what interventions do you need in order to be successful? Because you're trying. But sometimes we see that they haven't been trying. No tutorial attendance, no turning in work, no meeting with teachers. And then it's a conversation about never too late to learn is very different than never too late to try. It can absolutely be too late to try. And in those cases, it's a conversation about procrastination. And so if they're not trying, we're going to use a tool that we call a last chance addendum. And the goal behind this last chance addendum is to get them to try, to put in some effort. And so it's usually a 1-week plan. And now what happens is we sort of take choice away and we are going to tell them what to do. And it has very specific steps. So the first is that they need to have it signed by a parent because we want you to be aware. Then we're going to possibly assign tutorial or even Saturday school that they must attend. And then we're going to give them a competency that needs to be attempted by a certain deadline. And usually that deadline's within a week. This contract is about effort. So, and again, we go over this with the kids, but if they are assigned this and they go to tutorial and they turn in the comp and they pass, we're all very happy, right? They've cleared a competency. If they go to tutorial, they turn in the comp and they don't pass, we're still happy because they've tried. They've put in effort and they've gotten themselves at least closer. And so in that case, they would be considered having met this sort of contract. But if they don't try, if they say, you know what, I can't be bothered to go to tutorial, or I don't see any point in turning in this comp, then we are at that point going to give them an F in the course. And that's because they have in essence told us that they don't want the additional time anymore, that they're not interested in using the resources that they have available to them. And so what we're going to do is take those resources that we have and focus on other scholars who are using them, because there is a limit on the resources we have, and teachers' time and energy is a resource. And oftentimes this sounds really harsh, especially in our culture where we're big on second chances. And so what I will tell you is that it's very rare. It's very rare that a scholar is given a last chance contract and they don't do it. Because most of the time kids do want to be successful. They do want to take advantage of their resources. And the last chance, they often ironically like them because it's a very specific plan and it's specifically telling them what to do. So last chances are a pretty successful intervention for our scholars who haven't been trying. So why is all this important? This is often like a question that we get from the scholars, like, why do you guys care so much? And so we'll talk to them about, we want them to clear those no marks because we want them to pass their classes. Because now that we're in high school, they have to pass courses to get credit. And they can't graduate without that credit. We also do, like I said earlier, want our scholars to meet the A to G requirements because we want four-year college to be a choice. There is a lot of options for high schoolers when they finish, military, 2-year colleges, 4-year colleges. Maybe they go into like an internship type program or straight into the workforce. Those are all great options, and we want them all to be available. And so by meeting A to G, scholars have choices. And then finally, and again, probably the most important though, is that we're preparing them for life. We want them to have those skills. We want them to know how to learn. Like, learning how to learn is a pretty important skill. We want them to know how to persist, know how to ask for help, how to advocate. And so those are a lot of the things that our courses and our competencies are focusing on. So quality work plans. So you might be a parent who's like, I came to this presentation because I wanted to learn how to help my scholar improve their grade, but my kid doesn't get no marks. So in that case, quality work plans would be particularly interesting to you. So this is different from what I just went over. A student success contract is for if they end with a no mark. A quality work plan is if they end with a B or a C. So going back to the idea of we want kids to always be striving to improve, that growth mindset, the be the best pillar. Even if we pass on our first try could have maybe was not our best try. Or maybe we felt like, we gave it a good shot, but we could do better if we worked a little bit more on it. And so scholars can raise their letter grade on a competency at any point during the term. And I showed that in our example with the 2 scholars. So even if they earn a C or a B on their first try, if they're willing to put in the energy and work, they can go back and raise their grade. And no teacher in our system will say no. They've all bought into this idea. So if your scholar wants to raise a grade at any point during the term, they can do that. And then when the semester ends, if they still want to raise their grade at that point, they would have to do what we call a quality work plan. So anytime you're changing a grade on a transcript, you need to have documentation as to why. And that's what that quality work plan provides, is the documentation as to why a grade is being changed after it's been posted. So, and then just a note, because it comes up every time. If you have a no mark at the end of the semester, you are not eligible for a quality work plan, even if you clear that no mark within the first week. So if at the end of December, a scholar has a no mark in math, and then the first week in January, they clear that no mark, they're still not eligible for a quality work plan. So quality work plans, I email this out to all the scholars the first week of school in August and the first week of school in January. And then we also put hard copies of the forms next to the attendance desk here on campus. And scholars take that form, they either print it out or they get the hard copy here in the admin building, and they take it to their teacher and they say, hey, I want to raise my grade. And then they would fill it out with the teacher. They put here in this big box what they're going to do. There's a deadline that the teacher and they set together. And then they have to turn in this form to myself. And there are deadlines for submitting the forms because, again, if we're changing a grade on a transcript, we have to have documentation. So, and these are hard deadlines. So if they don't turn them in by these dates, they cannot do the quality work plan. If they successfully do the agreement with the teacher by the deadline, then they will get the higher grade. If they don't do it, or they leave school before the contract expires, then they would just keep the original grade. So again, they're different in that a student success contract is if they end with a no mark, it is myself or Mr. Domingo, we will come to your scholar. They don't have to set it up with us, we track them down. Quality work plan is if you're raising a B or a C and the student would initiate it. If they have an A, they have reached the top. There is no A pluses. All right, so let's shift to how you as an adult can help your scholar here at DeLago. So I think there's 2 big things you can do. The first is to use the supports, because we have a lot here, and kind of just help push your scholar into them. The other one is doing a weekly check-in. So let's first talk about our supports, because if your scholar needs help with school, we have it here. You don't need to go out and pay for other programs. You don't need to find private tutors. We have things here. So we have tutorial, we have Saturday school, we have our testing center, we have peer tutors, and summer school. I'm going to go over all of these. So tutorials every day. It's from 3:30 to 4:45. Scholars can go to any teacher. So if they tell you, my English teacher has tutorial in a day I can't go, they can go to the other English teacher. And that is totally acceptable. Their teachers are totally okay with that. This is the current tutorial schedule this fall. So you can see it's got it broken down by grade, by subject area. And these are posted around campus. They've been emailed to families, emailed to scholars, and it's available on our website. Saturday school. So I like to tell scholars tutorial is like your bread and butter. It's available all the time. Saturday school is like an amazing dessert, and it only comes around once in a while. And when it does come around, you really should take advantage of it. So if your scholar gets a phone call invitation for Saturday school, I highly recommend you do whatever you can to get them here, because it's 4 hours. It's 8:30 to 12:30, and it is like highly productive. Oftentimes, scholars will clear at least one comp at Saturday school. We do post it every Monday on the website what Saturday school will be available that Saturday. We don't always have it because it is based on teacher volunteers, and they like to have their weekends too. So we don't have it every single weekend, but if you're ever didn't get a call or you don't see it on the website, you could always email me to know what the schedule is. Testing Center. So this is in our Academic Commons, and it's a place where scholars can take tests. So they don't have to wait for a tutorial with a specific teacher. In fact, we recommend that they don't take it in tutorial because it's not always a great testing environment. So if it's something that is like a timed writing piece, a math test, where they need to take it in a testing environment, they would just let the teacher know, hey, I'm ready to take this test. The teacher would give it to the proctor, Ms. Tardio, and then they would just show up in the testing center on the day they want to take it and take it there. Peer tutors. This is a paid program with our 11th and 12th graders. They actually interview for it. They apply, they interview, and they are hired like any other district employee. They are high quality. They're trained. These are incredibly helpful scholars that we have in tutorial. They're in Saturday school, and we also will pair them sometimes one-to-one with scholars. And it's one of our best resources. So if your scholar is struggling and you feel like they could really use a one-to-one tutor, you could reach out to their school counselor, but also just tell them go to tutorial, and there will be peer tutors there to help them. And then summer school. So this is an example of last year's schedule. Summer school is usually 4, sometimes 5 weeks right after school ends. And it is, like I said earlier, sort of like tutorial every day. So it's 4 hours of tutorial, and your kid comes in and clears whatever no marks they haven't cleared by the end of the school year. It, again, highly productive. Most scholars only need to come for 2 or 3 days if they come at all, but there are some scholars who are here all summer. And the courses, again, it's dependent on teachers giving up their summer to be here. So some courses are not offered. Some courses are only offered a few days. And so we're always try to be as upfront with scholars as possible about what will and won't be offered in the spring so that they can prepare accordingly. We do have a lot of other supports. We have a bilingual assistance technician for our ELL scholars. We have special ed support. We have our school counselors, our school social workers, our parent liaison, and then we also do our best to connect families with community resources when appropriate. All right, now let's shift to the other recommendations. So you're going to use our school supports, and then also I would highly recommend doing a weekly check-in with your scholar. This is if you think back to school night when your scholar kind of went through, here's what I'm doing in each class, here's what I'm learning, here's my goals. It's that kind of conversation, and you would look at Canvas with them at their current work. And then it's also an opportunity to look at their grades and do they have any no marks. So you're probably wondering, well, how do I use Canvas? You should have a Parent View account. If you signed up your scholar for registration, you have one, because anyone with a Parent View account has a Canvas parent account. It was automatically rolled. It's the same username and login. But if you can't remember your username or login, you can email myself, you can email our parent liaison, Julio De La Torre, or you can just have your scholar log into their account. So you can be like, hey, grab your iPad, pull up your Canvas. You're going to ask them these kinds of questions. So explain this comp to me. What do you have to do? What formative work did you do to prepare for this? What's your plan for completing the work? What is your plan to retake that no mark? There is another presentation on our YouTube channel about using your parent Canvas account. I would highly recommend watching that to get just more information about how to navigate it and where to find grades. And then the other thing I would do, so when you're having this conversation with your scholar, I would make a list, because Canvas has all the information that they need, but it is like, the English is on the English page, and the math is on the math page, and the Spanish is on the Spanish page, and the science is on the science page. And for some kids, like, that's a lot to navigate. And there is still something about writing things by hand that is really powerful. And so I would have your scholar pull out a piece of paper and make a list of their no marks. And then the next week when you check in again, have them cross out the ones that they did and then add any new ones. And I would sit down with them and have them do that list with you every week to help them build that skill. Okay, let's talk about homework. Because every year I have parents be like, well, they say that my kid says that DeLago doesn't give homework. And I'm always like, okay, so here's my spiel on homework. There's a lot of research that homework does not improve learning. So homework for the sake of homework is actually not a very powerful thing that educators can do. And so no, we do not give a lot of homework at DeLago because the research doesn't support it. So we don't give busy work. We don't give worksheets and packets and things like that. But there are some things that they need to do at home that they can't do at school that are important for learning. That includes reading. So they should be reading, if there's a book assigned for humanities, they should be reading that, or just reading in general. The other thing is math. Math is an area where the research shows if they do a little bit of practice, it makes a difference. It only needs to be a little though. So they usually, not every night, but some nights will have like a handful of problems to do for math. When they do Spanish 11th and 12th grade, they need to practice Spanish at home, even our Spanish speakers. So that's an important thing to practice at home. And then finally, classwork. If they're doing things right and on topic, like on task and engaged in doing their classwork, they'll get most of it done here, but sometimes they might need to finish it at home. And then there's no marks. If they have a no mark, they have homework. So that is my spiel on homework. So if your kid ever says, oh, well, DeLago doesn't give homework, then I think the question is, well, did you finish all the classwork? And if they say yes, then it is, do you have any no marks? And if they say no, then it's like, okay, how about you do a little bit of math and you read a little? So, and I know, I also like to when I do this presentation for the scholars, talk about that we really value their time here at DeLago and we really respect it. And so we don't give a lot of busy work. And so the average scholar at DeLago is going to have 30 minutes to maybe an hour, hour and a half of homework. And that will vary throughout the week, but rarely more than that, assuming they don't have a lot of no marks. The average high schooler in America, it's like 3 to 4 hours. So we are definitely not giving them 3 to 4 hours of homework like other schools are, but there are times where that learning is going to extend into home. Okay, so to sum it all up, we have a lot of supports here. Please take advantage of them. If you feel like your scholar needs support, push them to go, reach out to us to help you. And then Canvas is a really actually powerful tool to use to keep up to date on your scholar's progress. And if you're having that weekly conversation with them, you're really going to know what's going on, how they're doing in their classes and how their learning is going. If you have questions about our grading policy, about success contracts, about quality work plans, I am more than happy to answer them. You can reach out to me via email would be the fastest. I'm pretty quick, but you're also welcome to call. That's my direct line. And that is the end. Thank you so much for sharing this past 30 minutes with me, and I hope your scholar has a very successful year.